Hello, everybody. My name is Grace Hansif, and this is Health and Hot Topics. Raw milk is one of the hottest topics in the health and wellness industry. There are so many people that are split on this. Some people are very pro, some people are very against. And honestly, I didn't know what to think stepping into the crunchy sphere, if you will. Basically, the holistic wellness sphere. Even if you don't consider yourself crunchy, raw milk is still beloved by many and very criticized by many, especially in the Western medicine traditional atmosphere that pretty much all of us were raised on. I had grown up with the idea that pasteurized milk was the safest and the best way to drink milk. So why would you need to drink it raw? I didn't even consider that being an option until maybe just a few years ago when I stepped into this world and started becoming more passionate about all of this. We're going to go into that today. We're going to go into the history of pasteurization, why they did it in the first place, why it's an outdated concept, and why it's the best for you, your family, and your children, especially to be drinking raw milk. We're going to go into some studies that I found. I'm going to give you some resources on where to find raw milk, and I'm going to link, of course, all the sources that I cite, even if I don't tell you explicitly where they're from in the podcast episode for just conciseness reasons. They will be labeled in the show notes below, whether you're watching on YouTube or whether you're on Spotify. That being said, if you are new, my name is Grace Hansif. I am a public health educator. I have a BS in public and community health with a concentration in health promotion. I currently work as a travel agent, which has nothing to do with what I currently do. This is my main love and passion, but I do try and combine my love of travel and love of seeing the world with a holistic mindset. I am a Christian, and all of that just ties into this idea of, I love this world. I love the world that God has given us. I love the nature and the food that He has given us that is all to be nourishing and that's supposed to be medicinal for us and our bodies. And so I want to dedicate my life to promoting that lifestyle, promoting a lifestyle of spiritual health, getting in the Word daily, talking with the Lord, having a relationship, a genuine relationship with the God that loves you and created you, seeing the world, seeing every corner of the world as much as possible. If that's in your, in your blood that you want to go see that much of the world, but getting outside, getting into your parks and your local towns. If you're not a big travel bug, that's okay. I'm not trying to make people that aren't travel bugs into travel bugs, but I will be sharing more on my Instagram and my YouTube, my travel experiences, my love of travel, where I can send you. This won't turn into an advertisement for my travel agency, I promise, but I will say that I will promote really amazing places that just deserve some love, that, either get a lot of credit or don't get a lot of credit, because so many places that are just full of such rich history that we can still learn from today. There are so many beautiful places and national parks all around the United States that are just gorgeous that I'm dying to get to, because God is amazing and what He has done with this earth is beautiful. And I want to elaborate on that. I want to celebrate that. And one of the things that He has done that is a major part of being a human being that can live and function is food. It's nutrition. It's health. And since the dawn of time, we've had food as medicine. We've had food as nourishment. We haven't had these institutionalized industries where they told us and fixed food for us or made food-like substances or chemicals that made food look prettier. I don't care if my tomato is redder than the other tomato. If it's a real tomato, that's fine with me. And that is really big a part of what my passion is. And as you can tell, I gesture a lot with my hands if you're watching this episode. All that being said, I combine my love of travel, my love of seeing the world, my love of Christ, that is my head point on everything else I do. I love the Lord so much, and I want that to resonate with everything that I do. And I just want to educate. I want to give you the power to educate yourself, to equip yourself. I'm not here to be your only resource. I'm not here to tell you exactly what you need to do with your life, but I am here as a resource. I'm here to give you advice on what's worked for me, what's worked for my family, what's worked for people that I know, and what I've learned in my education in a college institution that was Christian. But honestly, most of the things I've learned about health and wellness didn't come from my degree. I learned a lot about research. I learned a lot about the world. I learned a lot about public health history in my college. But to be honest with you, the majority of what I've learned about nutrition and about taking care of myself that has been the most practical has come from my own independent investigation. And that is what I want to empower you, is that you don't have to have a letter title behind your name. You can learn from people that have that, but you can also learn from people that have lived life and that have done the research themselves. This is a new era of research and information and independence and news, and I am very excited that more people than ever are investigating for themselves what the Western medicine industry has been telling us, and they are questioning it, because I'm not against all Western medicine. I'm not against all doctors. There is definitely a time and place for that, but I don't believe in a blind trust in the Western medicine industry, because it is a business and they are out for themselves, and that is all coinciding with our big food industry in America, which is what we're going to get into today. So raw milk. What is raw milk? So raw milk is simply unpasteurized milk. That's really all there is to it. There is pasteurized, there's ultra pasteurized milk. That just means that they have heated it up to a extra high temperature to really kill off certain bacteria and other pathogens that are in the milk. But you have raw milk, pasteurized, and ultra pasteurized. Historically, we have been drinking milk since biblical times. It says in Exodus, he will send them to a land flowing with milk and honey. So people have been drinking milk since the dawn of time. This is not something that's very new. And obviously they didn't have pasteurization processes to the extent that we do back in biblical days. I'm sure they had sanitization processes that they had back in that time so that they didn't always die of diseases, but there was a reason that people have died of more various diseases in the olden times than they do now. But I will say the industrialization period kind of brought out this idea of quantity over quality. They thought that, okay, well, since we're really trying to, modernize everything, we're building more factories, we want to have all this milk supply closer to the big cities, they moved a lot of these herds closer to big cities, which had fewer land space and poorer air quality. And all of that meant that it was cheaper for them to have a herd there. And they figured out that if they fed the cows grain instead of grass, that would be way cheaper. They wouldn't have to pay for the land. They wouldn't have to worry about the quality of the grass. Grain was cheaper, and usually grain was mixed in with this other byproduct that we'll talk about in a second. But they figured out that confining the herd into limited space, not having to put them out to pasture, feeding them whatever they needed, and then just ultra pasteurizing absolutely everything was way cheaper and provided a longer shelf life and provided way more quantity of it than quality of milk. Well, for people that don't really care or maybe aren't even aware of the possible health, consequences of that seems like a pretty good deal. So that started out as a new norm for milk. And unfortunately, the poor practices that were implemented with that kind of swelled and is now our normalcy to the point of where raw milk seems to be this really radical thing when almost throughout the entire scope of history, people were drinking raw milk and they were completely fine. So what do we do now? In the 21st century, we still have cattle that are grass-fed, but we also have cattle that are pretty much confined. And then they are still doing that industrialized method of, okay, we're going to stick them in a tiny room. We're not going to let them flow. That doesn't produce, it doesn't produce better quality milk. If they're confined, all the cows are mushed in there together. They're being fed poor quality food, so apple from the tree kind of idea of, okay, if you're not feeding them a good diet, then the milk is not going to be very good nutritionally. The state of Kansas conducted research and found that dangerous increase of E. coli 0157:H7. I don't really know. There's different strands of E. coli, so that I'm just saying that for the sake of being accurate. The state of Kansas conducted research and found that a dangerous increase of E. coli in these herds which had the ethanol byproduct. So the ethanol byproduct was found in, guess what? The distillers of grain that they were giving to the cows. So they would give the cows these distillers, these like grain, soy byproduct things that actually were a byproduct of ethanol. And they were giving them to the cows, and then the cows were also having this E. coli increase. So not only is your milk filled with things like ethanol, it's also producing all these other problems with E. coli. Hence, the dependence on pasteurization continued. So if you think about it, if you have poor surroundings for your animals, if they're not being fed well, if they're not going to be having good sanitization, the milk isn't going to be very good quality. So guess what? You're going to go, yeah, obviously we have to pasteurize this because it's not going to be good quality. So people just zapped the milk with heat and said, okay, it's fine. Not questioning the fact of maybe we should change our practices, maybe we should change what we're feeding them, maybe we should put them back out into pasture, even though it's a little bit more cost risk with us. They depended on pasteurization. But now we have sanitization practices. The most basic of cow farmers have to have a certain regimen of sanitization. Of course, there is a whole side story on, where our food comes from and how sanitized it actually is. But if there are certain rules that are being followed in the dairy industry, which I'm not an expert in, but I can send you resources on people that have spoken on this, our sanitization methods have improved drastically since the industrialized period. And I believe that pasteurization is a very outdated necessity. I believe that if you are going to put cows in that type of atmosphere and give them this really bad byproduct grain, which makes them produce bad milk, then sure, that pasteurization is going to be better than the raw milk. But if you have cows that are going to be sent up to pasture, they're grass fed, they're taken care of, they are able to live their life, and they're able to produce milk well and naturally, and the milk is kept in, stainless steel containers, it's kept in good condition, people are making sure they have sanitizing practices when they milk the cows, how they milk the cows, just, all the little nuances of, again, I'm not an expert in the dairy industry, but there are certain bars that they need to meet. And if the farmers are meeting them, then they don't need to be pasteurizing the milk. You getting what I'm saying? So like if we are actually doing the sanitization that is going to be required for, okay, like basic things like washing our hands, washing the equipment that it's going into, letting them eat in the grass so that their milk and their body fat and their muscles are automatically better. It's not just the meat. Like if you have grass-fed beef, the meat is going to be better than if you have cows that have been eating like this wheat-based product. I will say that not all wheat-based products are bad. Some are better than others, but grass-fed is the best option. But honestly, raw milk farmers, as a vast majority, practice good farming sanitization. So there should be no reason to, one, make it illegal anywhere, because if they are using all the good safe practices, then there shouldn't be a reason why it should be illegal for a farmer to sell the product that he's making. We'll get into that later. Secondly, why are we even still pasteurizing? Okay, there's a required standard to uphold the minimum for today's standards for milk anyway. These unsafe practices are outdated. I feel like it's giving people a lack of liability. If you are able to do everything that you would want to the cow just in the name of like, oh, well, it's just going to get pasteurized anyway, even though it still comes out and there's still people that get sick from pasteurized milk, but there have been no reported instances of death from raw milk, interestingly enough, then I don't understand why there's even a confusion. If there's public health educators that understand this, then it doesn't make sense to me why our pasteurized milk is the norm, why it's still the norm, and why raw milk is seen as so radical. I hope I'm making sense. I feel like I'm rambling a little bit, but I hope I'm making sense. Clean raw milk, I'm talking about clean raw milk. I know there might be some farms somewhere that will certainly make the news because the news will want to talk about them, even though they're completely the outlier. Raw milk, clean raw milk that is made in a good farm with people with good practices and good morals that are raising their cattle up well, taking good practices with their milk, that is safe. That is safe, safe, safe. And honestly, it is one of the best nutrient-dense liquids that you could possibly ever drink other than breast milk. It's comparable to breast milk, to be honest with you. Breast milk is extremely nutrient-dense. It's good for you. It has all these helpful antibiotics. It has these like living probiotic organisms. It's fantastic. It comes straight from the mother, obviously, which is mainly for the baby, for the developing baby. But raw milk is a living, breathing, liquid organism, which is crazy when you think about it. But anybody who knows anything about probiotics knows that good bacteria is alive, obviously. Your gut is filled with good and bad bacteria, but you need good bacteria on the lining of your skin, on the lining of your gut, all in your body to help combat bad bacteria. So people that have gut problems often go to probiotics, that's what they're called, and they try to fill themselves with this good bacteria. Sodas like Olipop, Poppy try to mimic the idea of probiotics, and I believe that is a very weak amount of it. I'm not here to oust Olipop or Poppy. I actually really love Olipops, but I understand that they are not the most nutrient-dense things on the planet. They're usually my cheat things when I'm craving a soda, and I don't drink soda, but there are people that drink kefir. If you know anything about kefir, that is extremely probiotic, super dense grains and nutrients. It's basically like this natural yogurt, and that is actually the result of raw milk that is curdled. So when you have pasteurized milk and it curdles and you can't drink it anymore because it smells disgusting and it's just not drinkable? Raw milk, you can leave it out for months and months and months. And guess what? It's still safe to drink. If it's been in a farm, if it's been in a system that has good safe practices, it is safe to drink at any point, cold or warm. Some people obviously prefer it cold, some people prefer it warm. That's all your prerogative. But it can sit to days to months without refrigeration and be completely safe. And if it curdles, it's completely safe for you too, because then it just is changed into basically a yogurt, a natural yogurt that is filled with probiotics, that's filled with all these enzymes and nutrients that are incredibly good for you. My mother has kefir grains in her fridge that she feeds daily, pretty much. They eat certain things that keep them alive, so she feeds it every day. It's kind of like a sourdough starter. but it is extremely nutrient dense. And she puts little kefir grains in her shakes, and she drinks some of the kefir juice. And I was really hesitant about it. I was really freaked out, to be honest with you. The first time I saw it, I was like, Mom, this is basically curdled milk. This is really weird. But she told me about what it was, how it worked, and I was getting ready to gag as I was drinking it when I realized that it tasted really good and it didn't taste bad and it was really good and I really liked it. And so whenever I go and visit her, I try and get her to make me a shake with the kefir grains in it because it's so good for you and it tastes really good. And you can add it to just about anything and it's fantastic for you. It's just like people put raw milk in their hot chocolate, people put raw milk in their coffee and their iced coffee, in their shakes and their smoothies. Although I will say that if you put raw milk in your hot coffee, that does pasteurize it. But at least it's clean pasteurized. Raw milk is essentially the superfood, and it just still amazes me that if anybody did just a little bit of research, it didn't take me super long to find all of this. I've listened to a couple podcast episodes on raw milk. I've, seen an article or two. I've dug into these various resources, and it's just amazing to me the propaganda around raw milk because it's so incredibly good for you. I've gotten this from the Raw Milk Foundation. They were a really big part in me just researching everything for this. The Western experience of pasteurizing should not confuse or limit the truth to how amazing and nutrient dense that raw milk is. And I know, I'm sorry, my throat is getting really dry. I know you can take a ginger shot every time I say nutrient dense, but trust me, it is fantastic. It is amazingly alive, it is amazingly beneficial. We're going to go into some of the benefits in a minute. Amazingly enough, I know I'm singing its praises. I've never actually had raw milk. Now, I can sing its praises without having to drink it. I don't need to have to drink it to know it. I have not drank it for not any particular reason. I just don't have access to it. I live in Virginia, and in Virginia it is illegal to purchase raw milk unless you own a herd share, which we could do, but it's just not something we've chosen to do. But a herd share is basically when you buy a part of a cow, and you get the meat once they slaughter the cow and they split the meat up. But basically you buy part of a cow, so you get a certain amount of milk that the cow produces, and you get that monthly. And I know a lot of people that do this and they love it. I'm sure there's very other under the table ways to get it. I can send you some resources on raw milk finders around the country. They have them all over the country, whether you have legalized raw milk or non-legalized raw milk, but there are ways to get it if your state does not have legal raw milk. Once I have children, and especially once I'm pregnant, I will be drinking raw milk for sure. Nutritional benefits of raw milk. Some people compare this to breastfeeding. Both are natural, both are fresh and unprocessed, both retain helpful fats, nutrients, enzymes, anti-inflammatories, helpful digestive enzymes as well, bioavailable vitamins and minerals, which in its natural state is most easily digested in the body. It's broken down. If you are lactose intolerant, you might be looking at me, Grace Ann, going, Grace Ann, that's all great, but I'm lactose intolerant. I can't drink milk. Why do people keep telling me to drink raw milk? Guess what? This is the good part. Good news for you. When milk is pasteurized, the form of lactase that holds the lactose is broken down. So you have this free-running lactose in the milk. So once it's pasteurized, if you're lactose intolerant and you can't digest lactose, you can't drink raw milk, pasteurized milk. But if it's unpasteurized, then the lactase is still intact, which means that you can consume the lactase without having to worry about breaking down the lactose, which means that lactose intolerant people can drink raw milk. It's safe for them to do that. There are so many accounts of people that were like, oh, I want to get the nutritional benefits of milk in general, but can't because my body physically rejects it, and then they start on raw milk, and it's fantastic. I will say, and I've heard this from many other people that drink raw milk, that sell it, if you have lived a life where if you don't routinely drink raw milk, the fact that it is so alive and active, and I will say potent in its bacterial enzymes and the things that it has, your body, I don't want to say it'll go into shock, but it will definitely need some adjustment. So definitely just start with like a shot glass worth. It's so potent that your body needs time to adjust to it. So I will say that I'm not being like, get your jugs and chug it down. Like I'm not recommending that. I am not recommending that. But start small and then work your way up. If you feel fine, if you feel like your body's adjusting well, then move up from there, because it's a lot of bacteria that you're ingesting into your body. It's a lot of nutrients, which are all good, but your body is still a living organism and it still needs to adjust to the new organisms that you're letting into it. I will insert this photo. This is from the Raw Milk Institute. It basically is a compare and contrast to the raw human milk, raw goat or cow milk compared to pasteurized goat or cow milk, pasteurized almond milk, and pasteurized soy milk, which just don't even go there. Soy boys are a insult for a reason, ladies. So as we see, going from top to bottom, we have like beneficial enzymes. Those are all active in raw human milk and raw goat milk. Human milk obviously is from breast milk. Diverse probiotics, those are found in raw milk. Almost all of these are damaged, destroyed, or just not even found in pasteurized milk, almond milk, or soy milk. You can see from that. So things that are found in raw human milk and raw cow milk, which is basically the thing that we're talking about today, is raw cow milk. Lactase producing bacteria, which means you can drink if you are lactose intolerant. Healthy fats, because fat, we are ditching the 90s trend that fat is bad, fat is good for you. Healthy amounts of fat are good for you. Obviously, just drinking, all these unsaturated fats is not great for you. But healthy fats like avocados, things like that, fats in milk, obviously are very good for you. Because women, especially, our whole bodies are filled with the subcutaneous fat. AA, CLA, DHA, and EPA is found in those proteins. Bioavailable vitamins, bioavailable calcium, bioavailable phosphorus, IgA and IgG immunoglobulins. So those are different types of immunoglobulins that are found in your body that relate to histamine production and allergy resistance, which I will talk about in just a minute. So that is, if you can see on the right, almost all of these, specifically in pasteurized cow's milk, are either destroyed in pasteurization, they are either very hindered, they are damaged, they are reduced, they are inhibited, or they're just completely inactive. And in almond milk, they are either completely not found, they're altered, inhibited, or damaged. In soy milk, most of them are not even there. Most are damaged or altered or inhibited. None of them are actually completely active in their raw and truest potent form as they are in raw milk, which is another reason why it's fantastic to have. So we're going to go into a couple studies. I'll link these in the show notes. I found these all from the Raw Milk Institute. But these studies found that there was a study that found that raw milk drinkers had a 60% decreased levels of IgE antibodies, which those are the antibodies. You have many different kinds. The IgG immunoglobulins are various types of allergens and environmental reactions. IgE is specifically for environmental allergies. So think pollen, think histamine response, mucus, coughing, draining, all that nastiness. So the raw milk drinkers has 60% decreased levels of antibodies and half the histamine in the blood. All that to say, the people have fewer allergies. The people that constantly drink raw milk have better allergy immune response than in people that constantly get allergies. So basically, people that drink raw milk have fewer environmental allergies. The University of London study found that raw milk protects against skin allergies too. Children who drank raw milk had fewer skin problems than children who drank pasteurized milk. The University of London also found for asthma that children who drank raw milk had far less asthma than kids who drank pasteurized. Another study from them found that raw milk drinkers, the children that drank raw milk continuously, had 41% less asthma than drinking pasteurized milk. Side note, asthma kills 9 people per day in the United States, so we should really be considering how often we allow children to drink raw milk, because if this is literally healing people, if this is helping people with their asthma is a huge thing. I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but like so many kids have asthma. So many kids have all of these, high allergy problems, hypersensitivity problems. Everybody has an inhaler. It's crazy. Everybody's on a medication. I could go on a whole sidebar about that, how we're the most medicated society on the planet, and we're also the sickest, but every kid has asthma. Every kid has some sort of allergy. It's crazy. And I do believe that is some tie to vaccines, but it can also be found and healed with raw milk. A study of 4,767 European children found that unpasteurized milk consumption was associated with significantly less current eczema symptoms and had greater reduction in A to B, which is allergies. If you needed more just persuasion that raw milk is good for you and then it helps with certain things like that, ear infections, fever, and respiratory infections were all found in another study of 983 infants compared raw, pasteurized, and ultra-high temp pasteurized milk. Like I said, that was obviously ultra-pasteurized milk, coincided with the frequency of respiratory tract infections, rhinitis, which is runny nose, and otitis, which is ear infection, and fever. The study found that as raw milk consumption increased, the incidences of all these ailments mentioned decreased, all of them, in raw milk, not in ultra-pasteurized, not in pasteurized milk. They stated that the protective effects of raw cow's milk on infections were comparable to those of breastfeeding, suggesting similar anti-infective properties of bovine and human milk. So, I don't know. I feel like I'd be pretty convinced at this point if I was on the fence about that. It's obviously going to be great for your kids, especially as they're developing their immune systems, to be giving them that. It's also good for adults because you never know. It can help with your allergies as well. You might be thinking, okay, Grace Ann, I'm still on the fence, because if you've somehow gotten to the point in life where you are being educated by this, but you still have this blind trust in our Western medical system for some reason, you're like, look, they would only be promoting this if it were the best possible thing for the consumer, right? Even though we're going to ignore the fact that it's business and they're making money off of people being sick. Why are the health educators not promoting it then? If there are people that out there that are really for the common good, they're really there for getting the truth out, getting the best health to the best people, because not everybody in the health care industry is awful, then what's the problem? Well, one of the problems is our long use of this swill, ethanol, soy, wheat combo concoction that we give these cows, combined with just the ultra pasteurization normalcy, has led these regulators to believe that all milk is inherently bad, because they're looking at the milk that's coming out of these cows going, oh, this is disgusting. This is not healthy for people at all. This is filled with all kinds of horrible things, because they're feeding the cows in these horrible conditions, and they're feeding the cows horrible things. So the milk is crappy. So they're like, we need to pasteurize all milk, because all milk, they're labeling it to that level of a bar. They're going, oh, the bar has not been lowered. All milk is bad. They're going to look at milk then as, okay, raw milk is a liability. That is a health advisory. You've seen all the stuff on the news about bird flu being tied to raw milk. It's completely bogus. When statistics, I'm going to quote Fallon and Morrill from a study from 2007. They said, when statistics for foodborne illnesses are reported, organizations like the CDC require the use of multipliers to represent experiences that were not bad enough to be reported. Multipliers skew the truth and are used to frighten people into thinking that easier access to raw milk will lead to more illness. Interestingly, the CDC does not report the millions of lactose intolerance illnesses caused by processed milk, but they do acknowledge illnesses from produce, meat, and eggs. I'm just saying. I believe personally, as an American, that we should be able to have access to the food that we want to eat. There's all these people that are like, get your hands off my food dyes, get your hands off my ultra-processed Chick-fil-A and my huge saturated cheeseburgers that you're getting from McDonald's. Get your hands off of that. I want to eat what I want. My body, my choice. Okay, if we're going to play that game then I want the freedom to go to a farmer that has sanitary practices for his cows, that they are grass-fed, that sells his milk, and buy that legally from him in any state, because that's what I want to put into my body, because I've done the research and found that, guess what, that's really good for me, that's going to be good for my family, and I don't want to have to buy a herd share to do that. This is America. So I feel like if we're going to play that card, then you can also play it in both ways. 60 years ago, when pasteurization procedures were legislated, we lacked the scientific knowledge that we understand today, why some milk wasn't clean, and today we have a full knowledge of how to produce safe, clean raw milk. There's obviously some places that don't do certain practices. This is why being able to shake the hand of the person that is giving you your food is the best option. I buy my meat primarily from the farmer's market. Honestly, don't sweat it if you don't have a farmer's market, but if you can, buy local. Buy from the local farmer. Go and buy your dairy. Go buy your meat. Go buy your milk. Go buy your eggs. I get my bacon and eggs every single week from the same farmer, and I know their family. They're really sweet, wonderful family. They homeschool their kids, and they're their farm hands, and it's awesome. I love Bryan's Acres, Lynchburg, Virginia area. Bryan's Acres is fantastic. But there's Remington Farms. There's Thistle Farms that I get my produce from. It's better than Kroger's. It's often cheaper than Kroger. But I understand that not everybody has that luxury of having a farmer's market nearby. But you can still use the raw milk finder, do your research, find ways to get your milk. If not, what I've had to do is for my milk, I get grass-fed milk, and you can get that from Kroger. I don't know where you guys shop, but I shop at Kroger primarily. Kroger and Aldi and the farmer's market, those are my three loves. And I get grass-fed, grass-finished, if possible, milk. And it's a couple of bucks more, but I think it's worth it. And it's good to me, and I'm happy with it. Even though it is pasteurized, it's not the best I can do. We're doing what we can, because guess what? It's all about balance. It's okay. I'm not here to push this idea on you of perfection. I'm not trying to push this unrealistic idea on you that you have to be perfect in every single scenario. If you know anything about me, you know that I preach balance off the hilltops. Balance is so incredibly important to have in a healthy understanding of what you can do and what you can afford to do, and being able to sleep at night and not being constantly stressed about all the environmental toxins, because stress is a toxin. Stress is its own toxin. All that to say, when you can, buy raw milk. Shop from someone local. Shop from a farmer that's local. I hope some of this helps. I know it wasn't the most in-depth episode I've ever done on the history, but that is basically a very brief history. I can drop some links to some other podcast episodes I personally learned from. The Weston A. Price Foundation is also fantastic. I got a lot of my resources from them in this episode as well. They have a whole campaign for raw milk sidebar on their website. They also have the Raw Milk Finder as well, and they have a bunch of really great episodes with Hilda Labrador. I love Holistic Hilda so freaking much. It's my absolute dream to have her on my podcast one day. So maybe I'll get big enough that I can have her on my podcast. But if you guys know Holistic Hilda, look her up. I will also tag some resources that I found from there. Of course, I'll tag all of these sources that I used. And as always, please let me know what you thought of today's episode. Like and subscribe. Do the things that you always know to do. Join us if you want. It's totally up to you, but we have a really fun community. It's a very niche community on Instagram. I talk about my pro-life stuff. I talk about travel. I talk about holistic health. I talk about Gilmore Girls sometimes with the girls chat. I talk about menstrual cycle things. I have a lot of girls that have PCOS that drop into my DMs and ask me questions. I currently don't have PCOS, but menstrual health is a really big love of mine. So ladies, there's a really big community for you there. But men, if you're listening, this is for you too. This is not a women's only podcast. This is not a women's only community. Please educate yourselves. Welcome to the group. I like to call us label readers. I don't know. I like label readers. I think it's fun. But please like and subscribe. Leave a 5-star review on Spotify if you will. This is completely independently run and operated, if that's not completely obvious, but I don't receive any money for this show at all, but is really a labor of love, and I love doing it, and I love the support that you guys have shown over the last few months. It's been amazing. I've only been running since November, but we've gotten an incredible turnout with views on Instagram, with streams on Spotify and on YouTube. So thank you so much. And if you like this episode at all, please let me know. Please share it with anybody. Check my other episodes. I've had some incredible guests on and have done some incredible topics that I've loved covering. So join us next week. We're going to be talking about men's fertility, what men can be doing, what your husband can be doing if you want to be conceiving in the next few years, if you already have conceived, but maybe you've had problems with staying pregnant. I'm going to talk about things that can hinder a man's fertility, that can boost a man's fertility, and every man should be doing to help his woman prep for childbirth. I'm going to go over all of that. This one's for the dudes. This one's for the women to send to their husbands if the dudes don't listen, because I know dudes are like less than 10% of my audience. So let's have an amazing week. I love you guys so much. As always, reach out if you need anything. Jesus loves you. Love you, mean it. Bye.